Alrighty, I think I'm connected. I think Thomas has wrapped his up. Let me go ahead and see. Let me make sure real quick. And hopefully we don't have the same issues. Twitch.tv. Pixelogic here. I know it same issues. Okay, good. Yeah, last week was weird. It kept disconnecting, but I think I've got Facebook logged in. Actually, I'm 2 of 3, so maybe I don't. Anyway, we'll see what's going on there. So if you missed it, on my YouTube channel, we're going to be talking about a couple things today. And on my YouTube channel, I posted this Zbrush Ornate Lion helmet, which of course I don't have the actual asset to because it's so old. Let me close this down and redo this. Restream. Okay, 2 of 3. YouTube. And it shows I'm connected. Alright, well, whatever I'm connected to, hopefully it shows up in the chat. And we can get started here. Alright, anyway, yeah, so we have that. And then if I go to my streaming, Summit. There's the Ornate Lion helmet thing, and we can go through and we can do some, just kind of going through and slowly doing that. But also, I have a Discord channel, and I'm going to help. I'm going to run one of these things here, so we'll do test. I'm just going to grab one of his characters here. So this is a guy, Bertram, is on my Discord channel. He helps me out. It is the Michael Pavlovich. Hey, everybody. Tuesday morning. We're going to have a little bit of fun, I think. And actually, let me find a picture of what I was doing. I don't know why I can't find it. Lion helmet right there. So this is what I posted about on my YouTube channel, just the making of this. It's time-lapsed. I have the real live videos of me doing it in real time, but boy, is it boring to watch. So I did a time-lapse with commentary, and we can go through bit by bit, and we can talk about how to make some of the stuff and how I would make it now, because I made this in 4R7, so quite a while ago. I just forgot I did it. But, oh, thank you, Mordekainer. I totally forgot. And also, I'm not connected to Facebook, or I don't think I am, so I apologize in advance, and hopefully we don't have the crashes that we did last week. I've been streaming since then, and I haven't had any crashes, so I don't know what that was all about. But anyway, let's have a little fun with this guy. So again, this isn't a model I made. This is a model that Bertram made. A guy on my Discord helps me out a lot, and we're gonna have a little fun with him. We're gonna do a little bit of maybe Doom fan art or something like that. And one thing I like to do, he's got kind of a big guy body here. I'm going to look up, there's a couple things we can look up. We can look up obese guy beach body, and that'll be something we can use for reference. Also like power lifter reference, maybe Zbrush body style is probably what I'm going for. So I'm going to look up Zbrush. And I'm gonna dial him back just a little bit, but we can still make him pretty big, but still pretty. This guy is so freaking strong. So, and we'll also start up right with the face. So we'll just have a little bit of fun, just kind of playing around with this guy. So I'm gonna mask pin, or hold down control. We're gonna go into mask lasso. We're gonna mask this out. I'm gonna give him just a little bit more breathing room here. I'm gonna move him forward. And now we could move both of these at the same time, the horn and the head. If we have this mask, we can go to move multiple, hold down control shift, hatch these out, and then just unhatch the head and the horn. Then we can pull this forward here. And there we go. So now this will give him just a little bit more room to breathe. We got Dynamesh turned on. I'm going to turn blur off under the Dynamesh settings. And for you guys, that'll be under, whoops, hold on. I was doing some CGMA stuff. That's portion. Okay, there we go. We can go ahead and just knock that back a little bit here. Yeah, it's yeah. Thank you for changing the titles. I always forget to do that. Let me go to smooth here. I saw the tail end of his stream there. Oh man, streaming for 8 hours. You guys would be so bored if I did that. Let me see. We got standard brush. So when I get the standard brush on, by default the intensity, I'm going to crank that up a bit, and also the lazy radius is on a little bit. So I'm going to tap L to get rid of that. And then also under clay brush, I'm going to turn RGB off. If you don't like those settings, you can save the default settings as something different. But I'll leave that up to you. And you'd have to save that in your Z data brush presets folder there. So we can have a little bit of fun here. And then, you know, you're always looking for ways to integrate these things here, stuff like horns and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead, let's hit turn off move multiple there. And then we can just kind of, I don't know, play around with these a little bit here. I'm going to give these a little bit more room away from his head here. And then just kind of alt tapping on the head here. And we'll use the standard brush and the clay brush just to kind of get these to set together. I'm also going to turn on transparency and ghost so we can kind of go around here. I can also mask through here. Hold down control, go to mask, go back to mask pin here. And then we'll just use this to kind of pull out a little bit there. So clay brush, clay buildup, standard brush, or clay tubes is another one, and then we can kind of start playing with this thing. Another thing I like how he has this divided up, he's got it divided up in pieces, so it's just a lot easier to concept. If I want to just concept on the head and the horns, I'm going to alt tap this one, hold down shift, turn off the eyeball, and then I can turn the horns on. If I want both of these a little closer together, I can grab these horns here, hold down shift, bent arrow, and then I can put these right down here with the head. So now I can have the horns and the head. We can just alt tap between them, and we don't have to worry about a bunch of other stuff showing up. So I'm just going to go through here, and we're just going to maybe push this back a little bit. So I'm going to keep what he has here. I don't really have any problem with it. And again, I don't really have any problem with anything on here. I'm just going to kind of go through and just kind of see if there's anything I would want to change, or I don't even know what kind of creature I'm trying to make here. It's just more of a exploration and just kind of having a little bit of fun here. And when we're doing eyes, what I like to do is just go ahead and put in a socket. And I'm not going to worry about the eyeballs just yet. This is just where the eyeball is going to end up sitting. And let's crank up the intensity just a little bit more there. And go through here and start knocking these things back. And then we can maybe give him a lip here, and we can start differentiating that upper lip and that upper face here. And again, this is a fairly low resolution Dynamesh, which again I do like starting with here, so that's another thing I would do. And again, if you're just joining us, I stole somebody else's model that I'm just working on right now. This is Bertram's model from my Discord channel, and we're just gonna have a little bit of fun with this. Now I do like working on things separately, you know, like heads, hands, arms, and even in the face here, we can just pop in a Z-sphere here. So we'll just pop in a Z-sphere, and we'll just go ahead and do you can do a split mask points or a split unmasked points. If you do a split mask points, it'll keep it selected, but it'll throw it above the subtool. So I'll do split unmasked. Let's go ahead and turn on local symmetry so we can scale in and out along that local axis there. But anyway, if you do split unmask, it'll shoot it below, and I use that option when I'm doing like live Boolean stuff, which we'll get to maybe in a bit here. So now I got these eyebrows separate. It's a lot easier to work on these eyebrows separately. We don't have eyelids yet, but we can certainly add them in a bit. So now we can go through here with our clay brush. We can build this up, and we'll take the Damien standard. We'll knock this back, and then we'll just throw that orbit, that big heavy socket right there. And so another thing we're probably going to want to add is a nice heavy brow ridge. You know, and again, it's just about messaging what you want this guy to feel like. If you dial back, for instance, if you dial back this brow ridge and you smooth it out, I'll give him a more childlike or feminine appearance, which generally speaking, when you're doing gross demon zombies, usually what you'll see is a big heavy brow ridge. Doesn't mean you have to give him that. Doesn't mean you can't cast against type. It can be a creepy thing to explore. There's nothing wrong with that. And also bent down here, we're going to give him a little bit of eye bags here. There we go. Now, we can probably go ahead and incorporate some eyelids if we want to. When I'm doing eyelids, there's a million different ways to do this. I'm just going to duplicate this off, hold down Control Shift, and we're going to hop into trim. So we've got our eyeball sitting there, and now I've got a duplicate eyeball. I'm just going to trim that bottom lid like so. And what trim does is it does a slice and then a close holes operation. Now I can inflate, but it's going to do some nasty stuff along that border. So instead of that, I'm going to go to my BZM Z modeler brush, Q mesh polygroup all, and then hold down shift on this polygroup here, and that'll just pull along that surface normal. And then we'll duplicate this eyeball off again. And for anybody who's ever watched me sculpt, this is nothing new. So that's why I'm kind of going a little bit quick. Same old stuff. That's the thing about, you know, when you're just making things, you have your workflows, and I'm always trying to keep my workflows updated. I don't like to stagnate. I don't want to be a clay brush hero, but at the end of the day, man, a lot of what you do is clay brush heroing, getting your clay brush out and just going to town, and it's really more about the design than it is about your technique at that point. You can only get so fancy or so elegant with your solutions, and at the end of the day, you just grab your clay brush and some Dynamesh and you just make it happen. So, and I'm also alt tapping through these subtools. I don't hunt through here, and you know, I'll name things occasionally, especially when I'm going to go bake, but I'm not going to sit here and, you know, oh, let me grab that. Wait, is that my upper eyelid? Is that my lower eyelid? Let's touch my eyeballs. It's like, no, just go in here and hold down Alt. And again, if you have everything turned on, you hold down Shift, turn off the eyeball, Shift, turn it on, and everything's on again. It's like, okay, I just want to work on the arms. Alt tap the arms, hold down Shift, turn off the eyeball. Or, you know, just turn on solo mode. That's probably a better thing. If it's just one item, just turn on solo. And your solo button's probably down here somewhere. If it goes off your screen, because I've seen this a couple times where your resolution on your monitor is not great, I think it's under transform. There's your solo button. If you want to, what am I thinking? If you want to customize your workspace and you want to move these things around, you can see I've dropped some things out of here. And again, there's a million ways you can find this. But if you go to my YouTube channel, on my playlists here, there is a way down at the bottom, Intro to ZBrush Part 2. That'll walk you through menu customization. You'll see I hop into my custom menu a lot right here. And you can download that for free from my Gumroad channel if you want to. But that'll walk you through hotkeys and customization and stuff like that. But if you wanted to work on, say, the upper body and the arms, I would say Alt tap the upper body, hold down Shift, shoot it to the bottom. Alt tap the arms, hold down Shift, bent arrow, shoot it to the bottom. Hold down Shift, turn that off, turn that back on, and now you're working on just these two. So again, I'm not hunting and pecking over here for what I'm trying to look at. I'll just turn everything back on. It's like, okay, let's do the head, let's do the horns, and then turn everything off except for those two, and then I'm back in action, and the eyeball, and the eyelids. There we go. And let's go ahead and again, the eyelids we don't have to work on separately. You know, it's kind of up to you. We can Dynamesh those back in, but I'm going to keep them separate for as long as possible. I'm also going to take his eyeballs here. I'm going to go to Unmash Mesh Center, reset to World by holding down Alt. If you want to know more about the gizmo, my YouTube channel has a ZBrush 4R8. What's new, and then I'll walk you through the gizmo stuff. No, don't worry about it, Thomas. That's cool. I was having fun watching the end of yours. It also gave me a little bit of time to do the Facebook integration, which I don't think worked. Ugh. No, it's having fun. Yeah, I binged Haunting of Hill House as well, so me and my wife watched that, and we didn't binge watch it all in one day, but boy, that's an intense show. There's a couple episodes in there, no spoilers, where I was like, wow, that was something else. For this nose, I mean, we could do like make like a skull nose here, and again, you're always looking for draft and like pulling things back and going through here, and you know, he's got the nasal cavity in through here, so it could be just like a skull nose here. You could also maybe you can have fun, maybe do a little bit of a bat nose. And with ZBrush, since we have this long undo history, you can really just quickly go through and just test out some stuff and see if there's anything that kind of, you can just control, drag to redynamesh. I'm going to up that resolution just a tiny, tiny bit. There we go. And go through here and you pull these things up, and Dial these things back here. And we can also start, you know, dialing in a little bit of, and again, it's just the illusion of surface detail. You're not really adding in a ton of resolution, because you can back it up and it's like, oh, this guy's got wrinkles, and you can have, you know, wrinkles coming up his nose and kind of block these things out here. And again, this is just standard brush with the Z intensity turned up a bit. Nothing fancy. You can use the Damien standard as well to kind of go through here. You dig in with your Damien standard, and you can cut some lines up here in his mouth. He's got some chapped lips. He needs to maybe moisturize before he goes to bed. And then you can go in here with your standard brush, and you can kind of lift these things up here. And kind of dial these things in, and we'll go through here, and we'll give him maybe even a little bit of a heavier eye bag here. And again, these eye bags are going to tie directly into that eyelid, lower eyelid. In fact, we want to take that lower eyelid if we're pretty set with how that's looking. I'm going to hold down Shift, shoot it to the top, take this head, shoot it to the top. This head has Dynamesh properties, so when I merge this down, and I just have a hotkey for merge and then Control drag, that'll go ahead and just merge those down. And again, don't be afraid to add some eyelid thickness. I'm also going to turn I have Smooth Stronger select. I'm going to turn that down a bit. And then eyelids are thick, man. And again, depending on where you are looking at this guy, you want those eyelids to read. So, you know, don't be afraid to dial in, maybe even over crank that thickness. And I would say if you're working on games, over crank everything you do. Don't take scan data and just run with it. You're going to want to over crank that data. You're going to want to over crank those anims. You're going to want to make it read. Subtlety doesn't play too well when it comes, even on highly realistic, ultra realistic games. If you're super subtle with it, it's probably not going to read well in Engine. My experience, anyways. So, kind of started dialing him in a little bit more here. Let's see. Hey, everybody. Thanks for showing up. Sorry for giving you a heart attack. Cool. Awesome. And thanks, and also thanks for the good word of mouth. I rely on that, and everybody's usually really nice about that. You know, the fact that you guys would take time out of your day to watch me, you know, do stuff it blows my mind. So we tried the bat nose, and again, you're always going through here, and you can kind of play around with like what's going to kind of play. It looks like a who's that one medieval artist that does some really weird? I forget his name, but kind of look like one of his creations. But if it's not working, you could dial your undo back. You could also just duplicate the head off and just go off on a little tangent there, and then you can just delete it if that didn't quite work for you. But at the end of the day, we can even try to give him a little button nose. Again, I'm always looking for ways to cast against type here, or even maybe a dog nose. We can kind of square this out here, and we'll just kind of drop in some clay brush and see if that kind of plays, or a goat nose, or, you know, look up some animal reference and see if anything jumps out at you. Like, what was it? Haunted Hill House? House on Haunted Hill? The Haunting of Hill House? I can't remember the name of it. But I really, you know what I liked the most about it is I really, really wanted that house. Even haunted, I would take it. The house was so gorgeous. I was like, you know, I'll be haunted, maybe kill myself and my family, but as long as I get to live in that house, I think it's worth it. I'd go for it. Just kidding, I wouldn't kill my family. But it was a gorgeous house. And again, just the indications of detail, and, you know, kind of exaggerating, you know, this upper lip and these big fat rolls on the sides of the head and the sides of the face here. And again, if this nose isn't working, just go in here. I'm going to crank my Z intensity up on my smooth brush, and we'll just go through and we'll just dial in. Again, we'll just put in that little septum there. We'll just kind of carve this out. There we go. And again, just having fun, just kind of exploring shapes and forms and seeing what reads and what doesn't, and what I like and what I don't. I'm going to dial in a little bit of a heavier, he seems like an angry, he's got some issues, some anger management issues here, so we're going to go through and we're going to dial in some indications of knock these heads back, and also how maybe these forms integrate into these big horn masses, or if we want the horns to just kind of grow out of the head, that's another option we can do as well. A lot of times what you'll see is, and even I did this. If we load up, let's go into my intro page, sample files, reptile creature. There's a reptile creature I did a long time ago. We'll go ahead and turn that off. So this one, for example, we've got the horns kind of sticking out of reptilian mesh, so he's got his head there, and we can try in perspective. That'll look a little bit better. Those spit globs are, make sure I got caps lock off. Those spit globs are just Z spheres turned to geometry, and then you just smooth in between them. So like if I tap this one here, so it'll come in just all one width, right? And then you just go through here and you smooth where it gets thin, smooth it out, and then you got a nice little globby piece of spit that you can go into Keyshot or wherever, and you can give it water or beer or champagne, whatever renders the best. And but yeah, and this is all surface detailed stuff as well. And there's a lot of techniques for that. You also see I have subdivision history. This is good for posing. So you always want to have lower subdivision levels. You can go out and pose with Transpose Master or just masking and transposing, and then you can dial it back up. And that's just a simple matter of Z remeshing, projectile subdivide, and that'll get you all that. So anyway, let's go back to our guy here. So like what I was saying, if you did want to merge these things down, you can, of course, merge them. It'll inherit the Dynamesh properties, and now you can have a little bit of fun, maybe exploring, merging this head together, and you could maybe pull in and go in with our Damien standard brush here, and you could just see if there's like a ridge. Animals, or rams and stuff, they'll sometimes have a ridge, and this kind of also gives it that kind of supernatural kind of feel. It's based on animal stuff. You're going to have ridges on the horns, but it'll also maybe kind of be, it could also be like an ear flap maybe. And this goes back into that bat thing, that bat nose thing. And even this kind of skull nose kind of can resemble a bat nose here if we kind of pull this ridge out. And then we go through here and we hold down Alt, and we just kind of dig in and kind of give it that echolocation little sniffer. It's not anything that how bats work or anything, but it kind of gives you that bat feel. Even underneath here, you could, if you're carving in stuff, you could go through here and you could start just carving in this kind of shape here, and that'll kind of give you just that bat membrane feel. He's got some goopy little ear hole down here, and then his little sensor location go and pick you up and then hear you from around the corner and then go and grab you. That kind of thing here. And also don't forget veins. Everybody loves veins. You can pop those in there. And then you would also maybe want to differentiate too the different reads of the skin types that we would have. So we could say, okay, you know what, he's got, if we're going to do a separation up here, and again, it's just Damien standard, you could run this down. You can also run it down the side of his body here. So he could have like a big, thick skin fold here that we could go through, like a Komodo dragon. Komodo? Not a kimono dragon. Those are different. Those are the ones that wear dresses. This is a Komodo dragon. And we can just go through here and we can give him like a big, thick hide back here that, on the back of his neck here. As he's rotating his neck back, he might have some big neck fold. You're just giving him some indication of how his body moves and where he moves a lot and that kind of thing here. So we go in here with our Damien standard. And again, it's all about that messaging to the user, what this guy's story is, how he eats you when he finds you with his little echolocators, like that. We can have a little bit of fun with his body here too. And again, depending on how humanoid you want to go with the anatomy, you can choose to, you have the Zbrush reference we pulled up here. And let me see if I can find a really good picture. He's one I like to look at. But also, if you look at the difference between bodybuilders and powerlifters You know, these guys are super strong, off-season bodybuilders too. They go off-season, they get a little softer, and then they get really dehydrated. I went to the Arnold Classic. I know I told the story before. The Arnold Classic, oh boy, it was years ago with my friend. He was a UT powerlifter, University of Texas powerlifter, and then he got his doctorate. And his person who did the doctorate with him was running the strongman show. So we got backstage passes, and we got to see the strongmen warming up, and then we also got to see the bodybuilders back there. And the bodybuilders themselves weren't super huge. Like Jay Cutler, he was there, and he's like, these guys, he's only like maybe, I don't know, 5'9", 5'10", 5'11". That was the bodybuilder range. But not the power lifters, but the strongest men, like Thor, his name, he was there. He had Iceland carved into his head. This dude right here, the guy who plays the Mountain on Game of Thrones. So, in order to get strong, in order to lift heavy, this is probably the body type you're more often going to see. They don't look weak, but they also aren't like absolutely shredded. So, go and pick and choose your reference here. And it's not to say they can't get a little more toned and stuff, but this type of body type over here is that super strong body type, so you can kind of lean into that a little bit. But again, with messaging, you can get some abs in there, I suppose. But this guy, I don't think he's going to have abs. We're going to skip that part. Now, I would say this might be an element that I'd want to continue down. We can kind of play with that a little bit. So if we go through here and we use our clay brush, if you want to, you can use clay buildup, and you can use clay buildup to build up your shapes. And you can also go in here and drop that intensity down a little bit. And you can also, if that's a little too intense, that square one, change it to a circle alpha. That might be a little bit better. But you can also go through, and you can just use your clay brush, add an alpha, and then crank that intensity up on that clay brush as well. But let's play around with this a little bit here, because we want this to be malleable, and it's going to kind of go through. And this chin stuff reminds me of who's the guy, the Under the Hill troll guys. Shows how much I was paying attention during the Hobbit, the cave troll, king troll. That's what that reminds me of. There's the super bloated kind of chin there. And you can also play around with like hanging skin as well. We've kind of got a little bit of that too. And if you wanted to kind of play around with, we can carve in maybe a little, it's like maybe he's got some weird diseased skin, so we can actually indicate mandible here. And it looks like he's got an ear hole here, so we can, if I've already dedicated myself to this bad ear, I can do that, or I can go, you know what, bad ear wasn't working. And we can just go through and like corner the mouth up. And we can also play around with give him a little bit of this is what I would call like tailgating demon. You show up for the tailgate, and they got some beers and sausage, and he's got a Wisconsin shirt on. That's what I'd call this guy right here. And that's kind of fun. And you can even exaggerate this too a little bit. You could maybe start pulling in like a little bit of an alligator mouth. And if you wanted to go that route, all you got to do is re-dynamesh and then go through here and just start refining. Okay, this is where I want this to go here, and you can have some skin folds over here, because if he's going to open that mouth real wide, he's going to have some overlapping skin here, and we can put a little ridge here. This will be more like a Tyrannosaurus Rex mouth. And then of course this lower jaw is going to fold in underneath, so I'll go ahead and mask this out here, and then we'll just pull this in like so. And then, like I said before, if we wanted to give indications of like bone underneath skin, we can kind of play around with that a little bit too. So we can go through here and say this is like just embedded into big old thick neck folds here. And then if we want to, because we got the skin folds now, so having his jaw read through isn't going to be that, at least on the bottom part, isn't going to look real correct. But what we can maybe play around with is this right here. So he's got very prominent beautiful high cheekbones. Maybe he's a former model. And we can go through here. He's went on some bad times, but we can play around with these bony structures here. So when we're talking about the difference between muscles and tendons and bones, muscles, I always like doing the tricep for this example. So the muscles are going to be nice and round, and then the tendons themselves are going to be flat. So it's going to be like the tricep, you got this nice round tricep here, and then you've got a flat tendon, and then you've got a sharp bone landmark here. So when we start going into the body here, we can play around with that a little bit. But same thing up here, and then when you have a little bit more resolution to play with, because this is, you know, fairly low, this is just for getting your block in, but you can also go back in here, and you can maybe play around with, like, you know, these things. Just kind of dig in a little bit here. Let's smooth that out. Let's try and smooth down just a bit. And you can kind of have that pulled skin look and then overlapping skin folds. And the thing about overlapping skin folds is, for example, like this one up here, I kept this upper eyelid separate because I like to really pull these orbits down. But when I go to Dynamesh these together, it's going to Dynamesh and it's going to just stick those together. So what you're going to have to do is mask this lid out again and pull this back over, and then you Z-remesh that to get that nice fold. So really any of those changes that you make, let's make that, there we go. And we could even continue this here, like maybe his skin ridge right here is what continues back up. You know, looking for maybe a little connection point. And if you want to do like a prolapse little vein thing here, you can do that too. You don't want to get too samey on the other side, and you can always break symmetry later. I tend to keep, let's prolapse these. So maybe he's got like a little skin sheath over that, make that look even goopier. And then again, this top part here will indicate big, thick, leathery folds here. And then underneath, we could maybe give it a little bit more of a bony read here, and maybe even more of a patterned read, like maybe like a Pan's Labyrinth. You know, if you kind of mix the creature with just a little bit of aesthetic design, beauty, it can get really, really creepy too. So it's not just, everything's not just pimples and sores and boils. It's like, no, you add a little bit of design in there. It kind of gives it a little bit of an ornate look. And if you really want to go like religious with it, you can look for religious iconography that you can dial into these things and kind of play with your audience a little bit. Okay, sorry everybody, let me back up here. I kind of went off on a little tangent. Cool, and if I miss anything, I apologize. And like Predrag says, like we did with the horns earlier, if you want to move multiple subtools, you move multiple, and they can unhash and hash these things around. So you can go like, I want to move the body and the arms, and then you can and you can also use this with masking as well. So keep that in mind. Did you get the Terminator while you were at the Arnold Classic? I didn't. But that trade show is intense. Like, man, that trade show, whenever they're gearing up towards the last bodybuilders, and they also have the other thing too, is the powerlifters, or not the powerlifters, I keep calling them powerlifters. I mean, essentially they're powerlifters. The world's strongest men were warming up, and then the bodybuilders were back behind stage. I think they were just coming off, and they were getting massages backstage because they were cramping up. You could see their muscles just freeze and like shake, and then they had people back there just kind of like digging their elbows into them. Because yeah, when you're that low on water, you will tend to freeze up a little bit. So you got to keep it together on stage, and then man, you will have some intense cramping going on. And again, they weren't huge, but the huge guys were the world's strongest men. Like Hafthor was like 6'9", 6'10". Brian Shaw was back there. He's a monster dude. He's another 6'9", 6'10" guy. And when I want to pull out, I'm sorry, I'm switching between topics here. When I use the move brush, that'll give me a nice soft curve, but sometimes I'll go in with move Acu. I bring this up every live stream. Turn that AccuCurve on, and now I can pull out the corners here. This is useful if you want to do like just blocking in armor. You can go through here and you can pull out to, you know, square corners here, but it's also useful when you're doing this kind of creature stuff if you kind of play around with like, you know, going through and just trying to see if corners kind of help, because when you're doing shapes you also need contrast, so you want to contrast your sharp shapes with your round shapes, and maybe that can kind of help you a little bit. And even here, you know, we can go in here with our snake hook here. If you want to even turn on Sculptors Pro, you can turn that on, and now you can like really go to town with your snake hooks. If you haven't played around with Sculptors Pro, definitely check that out. But we can try going through here. We can even just mask, invert, and then just pull out here if we want to see if there's a kind of a weird, we can bend this down maybe. Okay, that looks pretty bad. We'll leave that one alone. But, you know, always exploring within reason. And then here, I'm going to try something real quick. I'm going to see if I can go and just dial in. Let's smooth stronger up to 100 here. If you're ever like having to fight your mesh, it's usually an indication you need to drop down in resolution. Either if you have subdivisions, drop down a subdivision and go and explore those shapes. But also, if you're dynameshing, just drop your resolution down. I don't want to lose anything I've done so far, so I could ZRemesh this, but I'm really just kind of exploring a little bit here. And then again, just like that detailing here, we can go through and we can kind of indicate, you know, just maybe some skin texture here. And then along the side here where we were doing the big thick hide, we can go through here and do maybe some, it's so thick and the underside is just kind of pulling. We can go through here and just kind of pull that down. And if you want to put some like some bumps or some spikes along here, you can do that just to see how it reads. And you can also go like thicker spikes or bumps to tinier ones as you go up. And this kind of ties into that ornate quality underneath here that we were kind of playing with. So anyway, let's talk about muscles. Let's go into our clay brush here, and we'll just dial this back here, because really, you know, it's, you know, you can get gynecomastia and you can develop breast tissue, even in gentlemen here, but it doesn't usually sit. It doesn't usually sit like this. It's more of it'll still kind of sit on top of the chest. And even like big bodybuilders, I'll see a lot of people making pecs, or pectoralis majors, and it really just kind of sits on the rib cage. It can have thickness to it. That's not to say like the pec won't have thickness, but it's more thin towards the sternum. And then, in fact, if we want to dial this in, we'll just go ahead and turn his head off there. Have his little floating eyeballs. So we can even, you know, turn this in, and we can still talk a little bit about, because even someone as robust as this body type is still going to have landmarks here. You're still going to have the posterior, or that's not the posterior, it's the anterior superiliac crest. The posterior isn't back here, but even the posterior crest is still going to be pretty superficial, right underneath the skin there. Yeah, it'll be covered up with fat, but there's still landmarks like the vertebrae and stuff where you would see a lot of that. Now this vertebrae back here, usually it's going to be an embedded vertebrae, and then the muscles kind of embed around it. But if you, like Bertram had, if you go through here and you want to just exaggerate some of these vertebrae off of here, you can do that, and you can pop those back out. The big one you're going to want to keep, if we turn that head back on, is maybe back here. So let's go through here and maybe dial in just that C7. That's just a good landmark. And again, even a little bit more obese body types are still going to have that kind of look here. And then we can maybe tie in later. And again, these things don't have to meet up perfectly. We can just indicate that these things are possibly together. And then later we can dynamesh these together and ZRemesh it. So I'll tap this one here. Oh, another thing we were talking about going over, if I go to my Sketchfab, although I should make a Sketchfab, sketchfab.com. We're talking about doing something like this too. A little bit of fan art I did a while ago, and by a while ago I mean like 7 years ago now. If we go, I don't want to do full screen because my screen is big. I'm actually over cranking my screen here. But something like this, we can throw it into Painter. and kind of do, but also doing some biomechanical attachments and pieces like this. This is the Doom Cyber Demon, old school. Remember this off the Brahm painting? Just something like this we could, play around with a little bit of hard surface. And again, this is just a concept sketch. If you zoom in here, these are just like clay brush, standard brush. There's nothing fancy going on here. But you back up off of it, you can read it as what it's supposed to be. So again, this is just goopy concept sketch stuff. The more refined finished stuff, let's see if I have any examples. Well, kind of this guy. This one, we can load him up in ZBrush too if you guys want. We want to do the biomechanical plugins and stuff where things kind of go into his body here. But this one, these pieces are a little more finished, a little bit more, I don't know, purposeful. So you can kind of see what's this resin here. So yeah, this kind of, and these things they're still kind of organic-y shapes. They're still flowing, but then down here we have that contrasted with, a little bit more just mechanical functionality of a weapon. Got little plastic switches. What does this one say? Periocolo. Anybody know Italian? I don't, but I put it on there like I know what I'm doing. And that's really what art is all about. Acting as if, pretending like you know what you're doing. So here's a little amber, little red light through here. And then you got these little buttons back here. Beep, boop, beep. So I don't know. I was just playing around with different gun stuff. And if you want really good reference for weapons, World of Guns, Steam game you can download. Yeah, Goblin Town guy, that one. Yeah, and I mean, sometimes it is, you can go through here and you can have a little bit of fun with, like these lips. Sorry, again, I'm really back behind. But giving him, big lip features would be something to explore. Right now he's got kind of gums. And here in the teeth, you could put a cylinder in here and just kind of play around with these. He looks like he'd be more of a, let's grab a Z-sphere here. I'm just going to go through and just plop in some Z-spheres, and I'm going to make their widths a little bit different here. And that's not what I was going for, but I'll go ahead and split those off. But that's kind of funny. He's like a Bubba demon. Because my first instinct was to go, okay, let's go quick do a auto groups, and then mirror and weld, and then we'll embed these a little bit. You can actually use a depth slider to embed those while you're working. But if we go in here to snake hook now, you can go through here and you can make these like, whatever. And if you want to make sure you're just grabbing one, you can go to auto masking here. You can do mask by polygroup since they're all auto grouped, or you can go down here to topological. And then you can kind of dial in, playing around with this. But this is so like killer clown, you know what I mean? I actually I'm so glad. Happy accident, everybody. I like those teeth so much better. They're so much grosser. So I'm going to go in here with my H polish, and you can Dynamesh these together. I'm going to go ahead and keep them separate so I can have a little bit more leeway. And we're going to go ahead and just smash these down. So knowing what I know now, I probably would have been better off, keeping these things square instead of circular, but that's okay. All I got to do is go in here with H polish, go to the back here, and we'll make them square. There, I got square teeth. No big deal. So don't, again, if you're just kind of getting your ideas out quickly, don't fret too much. I was reading a really good animation blog. One of my animators, not my animator, he's not mine. One of the animators. He animates my stuff because that's his job, okay? But he's not my animator. He sent me some stuff where it's basically you can now, so in ZBrush, the paradigm, I don't know if I'm using that word correctly, but it sounds right. What ZBrush did is back in the day, in the early 2000s and before, how you would make a head is you would go through and then you would like make splines, or you would make these big polygon shapes like who's really good at that Bay Ray style of modeling where you just, and not to say there's anything wrong with it, if you can do it, you're amazing, but you would go through and you would just connect your edge flow together first and build your face like that, and then slowly subdivide and then add detail. Whereas what ZBrush did was like, well, because it makes sense, they'll be like, hey, what's easier, moving around fewer points or more points? And your brain wants to go, well, it's easier to move around more points. are easier to move around fewer points because you have more control. But in fact, the opposite is often not. The opposite is actually a little bit more true, I think, because it's easier for me just to go through and sculpt the head really quickly and then worry about the topology later. While I'm exploring, I can push these polygons around just fine because ZBrush allows me to do that, and sculpting programs allow you to do that. But you know, back in the day, that wasn't really an option, or it wasn't a real super viable option. But that kind of changed how we modeled. So again, let's go ahead and cut this in, and we'll put some little things back here. And the same thing is kind of happening in animation. I wish I could remember the name of it. It's like ethereal animation. You can look that up. And essentially, it's the same idea. And he uses the ZBrush analogy, where it's you know, instead of worrying about like a bunch of fewer points, or the animation equivalent of fewer points, you're going to worry about just getting your animation done, and then you can go back in with your control rigs and your very specific, I kind of like that shape here, your very specific little production-y things you need to worry about when you're doing something as technical as animating, which animation is surprisingly technical. I don't know if it's surprising or not, but it is a very, very technical pursuit. But it's just a way to kind of give them ZBrush access and control to rigs and motion, and not having to worry about the technical aspect of animation as much. And then later on, when you've got your animation figured out, you can go through and make decisions on like, okay, where exactly do I want my topology to go? That kind of thing. So I don't know what I was talking about, but I thought that was interesting. I want to learn Houdini. Can you give me some resources from where I can learn? Thanks. Go to my YouTube channel. It's called Houdini Game Dev Toolset. We go from ZBrush to Engine using the Houdini Game Dev Toolset. It's 2 hours long. You can't miss. Also, I like John Vito Serra and Louise Cruel. Thank you, Bertram. Yeah, and those strongmen are so big. Those are huge dudes. Posterior iliac crest be way less prominent on a heavy female versus a male. I think so, yeah. I don't, and here's the thing, being a game development artist, I don't do these body types a lot. This may shock you, but very rarely am I asked to make an obese body type for a video game. Not to say we shouldn't. I think all body types are awesome and amazing to study. I just don't get a lot of opportunity to do that. So, you know, this is why when I start doing these things, I immediately start going in here and being like, well, can I cut this in? Can I maybe put a little pec separation on the side here, and then we can start, you know, and even this one here, like that sternum's a little short. I want to pull that down just a little bit, get a little more sternum action in there, and we can pull these up into the armpit here. So yeah, the clavicular portion of the pectoralis major here, and they'll go and cross up here. But so I guess is the écorché stuff going on underneath the surface. This is the surface anatomy. This is the cool stuff. And God, one of the best people. Let me load up some of his stuff. Andy Bergholtz, one of my favorites, and then also artists. So Andy Bergholtz, amazing. And then for body types and just really cool body types, Elemental PQR Shell. Jordu Shell. Let me see if I can find some body types that he's got, because he's really, really amazing at just dialing in and just personality, and like, oh, it's so good. Just you can look at him and you can kind of tell, you know, if you saw him work in the field and you had to stop by and ask him a question, you kind of know how he'd respond. Same thing for this guy. You kind of know what this guy drank for breakfast, right? All of these things, they just have so much personality dialed in. And, you know, these kind of body types too. I don't want to get flagged by YouTube for inappropriate content, so I'm just going to skip right over those. But, yeah, and even like, yeah, these big fleshy shapes here versus, you know, how cool is that? This is so good. And also where they decide, and by they I just mean other sculptors, how they break down their forms, and they push areas and they don't focus on other areas just to make the eye have the big reads and get the big soft reads in there, with the important reads, I should say. And then here's like a little bit more of a bonier face. So definitely check out Jordu Shell. He is amazing. Easiest way to make a human eye. Yeah, I feel like I do that almost every live stream, I feel. We'll do it real quick. Sphere 3D, go in here, we'll initialize, we'll knock this down to maybe say 16 by 16, not 416, 16 by 16. Boy, can I get it together here? And then we'll make it a polymesh 3D. So if you want to do the lens on this eye, we can isolate this one here. And you know what, maybe even this one here. We'll go ahead and say delete hidden, and we'll say close convex hole, and now you're going to put in that lens here, and that'll be your goopy lens. Of course, you want to duplicate this, and now if you want to expand this goopy part out, you can just hit Control W, QMesh polygroup all, and just hold down Shift to pull along those surface normals, give you that nice layer. And now for the inside one, we're going to get rid of this one here, invert that, delete hidden. I'm going to go to Display Properties, Flip, and now we'll go through here and we'll close convex hole, and we'll pull in. So now we've got the recessed area of the eyeball. So now I can go ahead and flip those normals back, hit Control W. If you want to do the colored part of the eye here and it's sitting on that bowl, you can do that. You can just, you know what, you can Control drag off with QMesh, but I'm going to duplicate it off. And I'm going to mark, you know what, we can also just do a groups by normals here. Isolate this, delete hidden, QMesh polygroup all. Here's a color part of the eye. We'll just duplicate this one off. We'll hold down Alt and we'll paint here. We'll isolate this, delete hidden, and then we'll QMesh this out. And now we've got the colored part of the eye. So eyeball, goopy part. Here's the colored part here, and of course you can shrink this down, or we can say QMesh polygroup all. We can hold down Shift and kind of shrink these down. You can bevel these edges, you know, whatever you need to make this work for you. And this pupil's a little too robust there, so we can knock that back. Just hold down Shift, and again you can round these things out, bevel edge loop complete, whatever you want. So something like that process. It's not perfect, match your reference, but you can do a procedural city in Houdini. Oh, it means danger. Awesome. Excellent. That makes sense. Yeah, so the approach would be animate first. Yeah, exactly. Animating, and your rig is just, your rig's only available with what you have selected. So if you're just moving an arm around and it's like, okay, the rig is almost like a downstream dependency graph, node graph. So it's like, I'm just going to be animating the arm. So your rig just gets created for your arm on the fly. And you can go and you can set IK or, you know, unset it or whatever you're trying to accomplish with like your head, your hand stuck to your head. Let me see if I can send you guys some links because it is really, really interesting. Oh, what was it? It was like make something bad. Just do something bad. This one here. He's got some really, I'll link you guys at this. I know this is ZBrush and it's not about animation, but it's the ZBrush methodology or mentality applied to animation that I think is really interesting. And the point of the rig is to aid the animation process, but you'd be surprised how often it hinders the animation process. I mean the eye, not the eyeball. Well, the eye we did earlier, and that's just taking the eyeball and then giving it some eyelids. Cool. All right. Okay. So we've done this. Let's do a little bit of body, and then we'll get into maybe some decorative sculpting here. So we want to, let's go ahead and let's go into solo mode here. And again, I'm always looking for ways for me to find my landmarks because I live and die by my landmarks, and that's why you know, again, I'm so used to sculpting muscular body types that I'm just dying for landmarks, and I'm not very good at sculpting people with these body types because, again, I'm constantly looking for those landmarks. So, but sometimes you can dial in your landmarks first just to keep you honest, just to make sure that, you know, things are connecting where they're supposed to. So we can just go ahead and say this clavicle's got to go through here, and now we know that, you know, that chromium process is right up here. So we're in good shape, and now we know where these connections go, and also, you know, how flat or how bulbousy we want our muscles. So we can go through here. We can just say let's clay brush this around. And you could even do this. So another thing too, when you're building up your body styles, and I've got a new ZBrush curriculum coming out. We are actually using it at CG Master Academy and at my work for my students at CG Master Academy, and then it's always available for everybody at my work. But blocking out the body types, I've kind of gone into the stylized way of blocking things out. So I'll just drag a bunch of insert mesh brushes, and then have just a bunch of different shapes. I've kind of gone away from this type of block out where I just take a Dynamesh and dial it in. There's nothing wrong with it. I've semi-migrated away from that. But all that would basically be is just like if I want to do the infraspinatus, teres major, teres minor, just going into my primitives here and then just stretching out some muscles. And you could also make a muscle brush where you go from thin to thick to thin. It's probably a little overkill here unless you wanted to do an écorché model. But just going through here and being like, okay, here's my infraspinatus here, and then the teres minor is going to be much thinner, and that's actually going to hug that infraspinatus, and then the teres major is going to be down here, and that one is actually going to separate. That's going to go these two little doodads. Let's go ahead and do a quick auto groups, mirror and weld. Oh, split hidden. There we go. And now we can do a mirror and weld. So if we wanted to move these two together, we can isolate them, and then you can mask them and bring everything back, or you can just isolate them and move them around. But that's the kind of look you're going to go for. And then down here, if we have topological still on with our move brush, which we don't, that's going to go. So these ones are going to go attach to the head of the humerus. This one's going to wrap around and attach the inside bottom of that humerus, kind of the same place where the lats attach a little bit. We go ahead and Control W. So you can kind of just dial in these muscles. And again, it gives you tons of leeway to kind of go through here. Let's turn topological off. To kind of dial in these shapes. And then you can go through here and you can inflate them and you can H-polish them down. And then on top of here, you could put some lats in here. I'm going to skip the part where I make the shapes. And the trapezius, probably a little lower. That's going to be the bottom-ish of your rib cage here. So all of these things here, we could even extend these down a little bit here. Again, just kind of playing with, where the spine of the scapula is and these muscles, if you want to pronounce it like Popeye. Got these muscles here. And then this here is going to be the spine of the scapula that, goes up into the acromion process here. So I'm going to kind of mess around a little bit with these shapes here. We'll kind of maybe dial in, cut this across here. So again, that acromion process to the clavicle, and then inside of these is where these are going to fit. Now, if you're going to be doing stuff like, okay, the eye line straight back halfway down the head goes to the occipital protuberance where the trapezius connects, you can still do that, but I wouldn't say get too caught up in. Let's also make his eyes a little bit smaller. I feel like his eyes are just a little bit too big here. Anyway, that would be his trapezius going down his back here, and then these muscles is going to these muscles kind of feather out, and then up here on the neck they kind of go down the neck and then into here, and then they loop around. They actually attach to that inside of that outer third of that clavicle there. So, and then the deltoid is going to attach all the way around here. And again, maybe he's got some big, strong shoulders, maybe not. You can play around with these things. And in fact, if you wanted to go through here and add some metal or some of that kind of stuff, you can do that. But first, you got to dial in where you're going. So we got a little bit of a serratus anterior there. And even you can put in some obliques. Now, would you see serratus anterior and obliques on this type of body? No, you would not. But for landmark purposes, sometimes it's fun to dial in, and then you just go soften it out. And then even the, this kind of stuff here. And, bony landmarks, just like when Bertram went through and he exaggerated those vertebrae, absolutely. Just because you wouldn't necessarily see it on a bigger person, you could for sure go through here, and you could just really overcrank those bony landmarks because, again, he's a creature, so you're telling that story of, is he going to going to have big bony protrusions that are sticking through his skin? Is his elbow going to be like a regular Joe Blow elbow, or is it going to be like, rah, you know, doomsday elbow? It's kind of up to you. But yeah, and then dialing in these forms is you just got trying to get those masses, and then eventually you can just drop this down, move this up, merge it down, Dynamesh together, and there you go. And then you go through here and smooth it out. But at least you were able to kind of play with those forms a little bit without getting locked in. And then even here, you know, playing around with like the story you're telling with, if it's like an animal type thing too, if you want a different texture on his belly versus on the back here, if you want to continue this through here. And this is a trope that I use for a lot of my creatures, so I don't know, maybe I'll skip that. You've got a big belly button down here. If you want to do some really gross stuff, belly buttons are a great place to do that. You can have things hanging out of belly buttons, and again, just, you know, when you got something this heavy, you want to enforce that or reinforce that with your shapes here. So we can also go through here, we can turn our lazy radius back on, just tap the L key, and you can just kind of, you can really feel that squash and stretch and pull. And then when if you were to pose this guy out, you know, if he leans to this side, for example, like if you were to zero mesh him and pose him out, you would really err on the side of like, okay, let's bulge this thing out, and you know, all this stuff collects, and over here you would smooth it out, and then you'd see maybe a little indication of his rib cage on this side. Not a lot, but you know, just things to take. I mean, obviously he's not leaning, so it looks dumb, but you guys get the point, right? Anyway. Yeah, eyelids we did earlier. Oh, you know what? Let me. Apparently, when it changed, it didn't change. Let me dial in the right thing here. Because Thomas was going just before me, and I thought Mordecai was able to change it, but it doesn't look like it switched over. If you guys are still seeing Thomas's name, not sent. Drafts. Pixelogic streaming. Let's try this. John Yu says the back anatomy is toughest to learn growing up, hardest with the lower back, sacrospinalis areas, and how they made the other muscles get their shapes. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. So it's like we were talking about. So here's the trapezius here, and then you have your lats going over here. And when you're looking at an Ecor shape model, like this one here, can you guys see this? You know, these lats make this very specific shape, this V shape down to the sacrum. However, if you do that and you go through here and you make that very prominent lat shape, you're going to have a bad time, because the lats are actually a very thin muscle. They're thickest up towards your armpit, and they're just going to cover just that bottom portion of the scapula, the little bottom corner here. But all of this in here is really thin. There's like an aponeurosis down here where it just, that lat just turns into almost nothing. So it's thicker up here. Up here in this area, it's a little bit thicker, so you see it a little bit more prominently, and it tucks up in your armpit. And then as it goes down your back, it turns thin, and then underlying shapes take over. So if we hide his arms here, it might be kind of hard to explain. So remember when we were doing the serratus anterior, these things are going to be a little more parallel. These are attaching to the ribs on either side here. You guys might like this one too. Let's pull this up. I always like, if I want to see what's going on in there, go to zygote body, and we're going to go to this little 2 dots here, and we're going to say we don't need to see skin or guts or nervous system stuff. We just want to see muscles and ligaments and bones. So, and here if we tap this one here, we see serratus anterior, and if we want to dial the muscles back, we can kill all those, and we can see, okay, oops, where'd it go? You stay with me. Serratus anterior is going from the rib cage here, and they're attached to the ribs, and they're going to go back. And the ones you see, you don't really see these ones. These are covered up by obliques, but these parallel ones right here, you know, on a very lean person, you'll see 3 or 4 maybe. And then they attach to the back inside of your sacrum, or your sacrum, your scapula there. So what that means is this bulge right here, and then also if we bring our muscles back, yoink. And again, these lats here are, we can go ahead and turn those off. So now we can see what's going on underneath the lats. So this bulge from this one right here, and also there's your external oblique, we'll turn that off. You got some muscles in here. And let's even turn these off, because there's some really deep muscles in your back, like these ones right here, that give you those that kind of column in your back here. So when you're looking at these shapes, and that's zygotebody.com. So when you're doing your back here, your lats, they get thin, and then that bulge here is going to be, your serratus anterior is going to bulge this out underneath your lats, and then you're going to have kind of an oblong bulge here. Again, your sacrospinalis is going to have these columns here, and then another bulge here, and then your sacrum is in here. So all your lats are going to end up kind of making, move all this crap off my screen here. Your lats are going to end up, instead of doing this shape, your lats are going to do more of this shape, because everything underneath the lats is dictating, and not just because he's heavy, even muscular people, they're standing relaxed, are going to have more of this kind of flow to their back, because muscles underneath are dictating how that lat's operating. So if you're just studying at crochet, you don't want to make your lats look like that. Look at the forms that it's making, and you'll see a little bit clearer what's going on underneath the body. And that's the interesting stuff too. And also how these things, the infraspinatus and stuff, and when I made them spherical, and I should have made them more strap-like, because they're kind of bulged out, and that's not really how they operate. But yeah, when you move your arm back, they will bulge out. So, kind of depending on what you're looking for there and what's going on. Give me some tips how I can learn Simpsons Designer. Feels too boring to learn nodes. I have a walkthrough on that on my YouTube channel. Scroll all the way down to the bottom here. Simpsons Designer Quickstart. Give that a shot. I try not to make it super boring. It's older, so. How do you feel about scaling his legs down by 30 to 50%? Let's do it. I'm all for suggestions here. Go through here. We can. And this will give him a little bit more of a Mr. Incredible style look here. And again, just playing around with proportions is always going to be really fun to do. Give him some little grabber arms, or maybe multiple grabber arms. Who knows? Have fun. He could be like a little spider creature. You can turn him this way. He can be dragging his belly on the floor. We can tilt his head up here. And then he can be, just like a little gross little creature guy. So always exploring. Cool. Where did you learn anatomy? You seem to be very proficient. Well, I learned anatomy first at Ringling. I took an anatomy course, and of course, their anatomy classes are always just hard to get into. So I had to wait till I was a senior in college before I was able to even apply or get into the anatomy course. And we did a lot of maquette sculpting in that class, and I do like, you draw and then you do a maquette sculpting, and I teach anatomy too at Gemini College here in town. And honestly, teaching is probably why I retain any at all, because when I learn anatomy, I'll learn all the anatomy, and then I'll retain like 5% of it, and then I'll learn it all again, and I'll retain an extra 5%. So over the course of 10 years, I might have retained 15, 17, 20% of anatomy, right? But the teaching has helped me retain a little bit more and a little bit more, and I end up looking more at the source material in a more critical way, with a critical eye, and I see a little bit better, as opposed to if I was just a production artist or just like a character lead who's just like, hey, I'm making bodies, let me get my reference up, and then make some bodies. That's good for surface anatomy, and I definitely think you should do that. But when it comes to an understanding of the body, it can get real light on that type of thing. And so really teaching anatomy has done that, but again, I'm not real big on surface anatomy. I fail in that, but I'm always trying to get better. And anatomy is another one of those things too, where I would get really bummed out because I'm not like a Frank Frazetta. I can't just learn anatomy in a weekend and go like, oh, I need to learn anatomy. Okay, I got that down. Now I'm going to be awesome. It's like, no, anatomy is hard for me. It is hard for me. It will always be hard for me. Just like learning anything. I'm not a smart person. So when I learn something, it's like pulling teeth. But the good news is with me, I can generally retain it once I've learned it. Just the learning process is a little bit much. So most people I know learn much faster and better than I do. But, you know, I try. Always trying to get better here. These muscles we can break down quite a bit. There's a lot of really fun stuff going in here. So we've got our brachialis muscle here, and then we've got our tricep muscle here. Triceps, 3 heads, and you're gonna have a littler head down here. Actually, this one right here is one of those. And you got your medial head and your lateral head. I forget the exact names. And then inside of here, you're going to have your brachialis is going to go all the way through here. You're going to actually see it here. You got a brachiobrachialis. There's a coracoid process inside of your spine, your scapula here. Can I pop this off? You don't really see it. It's right where this metal ball is the or a coracoid process, and that kind of hooks out, and there's a little muscle that attaches there in your little armpit. So you can see that kind of sometimes a little bit. And then in here, the forearm muscles are really fun. So you've got, and you know what, we'll pull this back. Here, we've got these 2 muscles. I usually, I think Proco calls them ridge muscles. Oh, that's another thing too. So yeah, Proco is a good guy to watch. I have, you see this shirt? I have a lifetime subscription to New Masters Academy. I haven't watched a lot of it yet, but again, I'm always trying to learn. I just need to find the time sometimes. So brachioradialis, I usually put these both into the brachioradialis category, but technically this was the extensor carpi radialis longus on this side here. But essentially you have this shooting around here is going to be your ridge muscles, and then back here you've got your extensors, and over here you got your flexors. So to simplify this, we have our ridge muscles going here to and this is always going to go to our thumb side. So the radius here, okay, well, I don't want to bring up paint stop because it can sometimes do some weird stuff to my hotkeys. We've found, but paint stop's awesome. Go to document paint stop, and you can. Zygote body, yeah. I'm struggling a bit choosing when to stop modeling in T-pose and posing. Those muscles change shape in a way that suggests to sculpt final pose, but you lose symmetry and model flexibility. Yeah, so I would sculpt in symmetry and just a relaxed A pose. This is just my opinion. Relaxed symmetry for your A pose. And we'll go into brush here. And there, hardness, and then 7 maybe. Yeah, do a relaxed A pose, and then when you go to pose, you can always sculpt in your corrective blend shapes, I guess you could kind of call them, but essentially when you go to change or to exaggerate or to squash and stretch or bend, yeah, you're right, your muscles are going to change, and you just have to go in and sculpt that. So when you pull your arm like this or your arms like this, your muscle's going to do different things. But anyway, we got our head of the humerus here and lateral medial epicondyle, and so what we're going to talk about, we got this. And then we got, you know what, let's even start even simpler than this. Let's do new layer. So we have our cylinder of the arm. We can just do this. We got the cylinder of the arm here. And we've got the cylinder of the forearm here. And then we've got the deltoid, and deltoid's going to kind of pull over a little bit here. Now, inside of here, you're going to have your head of your humerus goes down, and the lateral epicondyle is going to kind of provide a pivot point for your ulna, the olecranon of your ulna. And your ulna, if we do a supinated pose, you're going to have your humerus here, and that's going to go into your little cup on the scapula side. And then you got your lateral medial epicondyle. And then you've got your ulna and your radius. Now the radius is always going to be on the thumb side, so if you're supinated, your hand, here's your palm, and then here's your thumb, and then here's your little finger here. And so the radius is going to be separate from your ulna. It's not going to cross over, and then you got your ulna back here, and the ulna is going to go to the pinky side. It's going to go from thick to thin, and then the radius is going to go from thin to thick here. Now if you go to a pronated pose, so we got the, again, humerus here, and then you've got the lateral medial epicondyle, and you got a little spool in here that the that it rotates across. And even this line right here, how it kind of goes down and then out, if you stand with your arm out, relax, you're going to see it goes straight down and then it pops out because it's rotating on that spool and it's going to go this direction. However, when you cross it over, it is actually going to make more of a straight line. So this radius here is going to cross over, and it's always going to stick to your thumb. It's going to go from thin to thick. And your ulna is going to stay static. So that's going to go to your pinky side. So now your pinky side is on this side, and then your thumb side here, here's our hand, and then here's our thumb side here. So again, the radius is going to follow that thumb, and it's also going to pull those muscles across. So that ridge muscle here, we're dialing this in. Let's go ahead and knock down that opacity here. We'll dial some muscles in. So here, we've got our deltoid, and then we've got our bicep, and then we've got our brachialis, and we've got our triceps here. And it's going to be the belly of the muscle, the flatness of that tendon, and then the pointiness of that elbow there, that bone, that bony landmark. And then between the brachialis and the, let me go back up here, you can see this a little bit better. So here's your brachialis here, and then here's your triceps, and then here's your biceps. So this one tucks right in between your brachialis and your triceps here. So right in here is where our ridge muscles cross over, and when we have our arms bent, it'll actually kind of fold here a little bit. And then this, and again, if your hand is down like this, and say we put our pinky in here, so our thumb is on the other side, that radius is going to pull these muscles across. And then you're going to have your ulna here, and then your wrist is going to be boxy. And then, yeah, these ridge muscles, and your extensors are going to kind of be over there, and then your flexors on the other side. So with it supinated here, you're going to have this landmark here, that bony landmark, then you're going to have your flexors, then you're going to have your ridge muscles up here, and then your extensors. And in the ridge muscle, you're not going to see, it's not going to like cross over anything because your thumb's on that side. So this is mostly just going to be flexors here. And again, it's that high, low, high, low, high, low. You've got your deltoid going halfway down your humerus, and then you've got your triceps here, and then you've got your biceps, and then you've got the underside of the triceps, and brachiobrachialis and the brachialis down here. So you're going high, low, high, low. Even on the body, so when we switch this over, we're going to have our deltoid. Sorry, this is a ZBrush thing, but we'll get back into ZBrush in just a second. So tricep here, it's going to pull those ridge muscles over, and then now you've got your extensors here, and then you've got, again, you still got your landmark, and then you got your flexors here. And it's just pulling these things over, and then you in here you've got your brachialis and your biceps, like so. Yeah, I think that's it. I think you guys get it. So how that works on here. And again, I would love to teach my anatomy students in ZBrush, but it's not a prerequisite. I teach my anatomy students before they get into my ZBrush class. So we end up having to use clay. It's not a bad deal. And you know what? Let's go ahead and add a little bit of a wrist here. So we can have a little bony landmark here, but those extensors are going to be, you know, down the back, and those go up into your fingers here. There's no real muscles in the fingers. You might have some muscles in here in your palm, but in here in your fingers, there's not a whole lot of, there's no muscles. It's just fat pads and skin, so, and bones. So, and it's going to go on the flexor side, it's going to go through the carpal tunnel right in here, and then so all these little tendons go through here, and they spread back out into your hands. And then that's when you flex a muscle, you're basically taking 2 points and you're contracting them together, and your muscle bulges. And then when you extend the muscle, same thing, but just on the other side. So you're flexing your flexors. And again, here's these ridge muscles here, and then your flexors here through the thumb, and then your bicep just tucks into here. Same thing for the legs. You're not going to see a whole lot of legs here. And in fact, he's kind of in a very relaxed pose here. But even on these legs here, it's going to be something like you're going to have your sartorius. It's going to go from your anterior superior iliac spine down here. It's going to curve underneath this leg. This is going to be curved on the outside and flat on the outside here. Your tibia and your fibula, and these bony landmarks are going to flatten these out. And then you're going to have your patella, and then you're going to have some fatty deposits here. And then here you're going to have your rectus femoris here, And it's going to be a strap over that knee, and then your tibia is going to curve. You get a nice curve right through here. And this is your soleus and your gastrocnemius are going to be sitting back a little further than that. And again, you're still looking for that high-low. So high over here, where your calf muscle is built up. Now, animal legs are going to be different. It kind of looks, he doesn't really have an animal leg, but if you wanted to do like a reverse dog leg or something like that, you know, some of these things don't apply. You would pull out, I mean, maybe it is. Maybe if we pull this out, could be more of a reverse dog leg. He's up on his feet, or like he's got hippo feet, so look up hippo anatomy. But here it's going to switch. It's going to go from high to low to high to low to high on the inside, low on the outside, because your fibula is going to determine that point, and then this over here is your tibia. So, and again, you're not seeing a whole lot of those legs, but let's go ahead and straighten this out just a bit. But just like that ridge muscle here, and then your adductors on the inside. So you've got your sartorius here, and that's going to separate just like your ridge muscles here. Here's your quadriceps, your quads, and then your adductors. And then on the back side here, you're going to have your semimembranosus, semitendinosus. This one's to your vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, and then your rectus femoris. But in the back, you're going to basically have your hamstrings kind of split here. And then your calves are going to tie up in here. But on surface anatomy, you're going to have some fat back here and some skin. So it's not going to just be like an écrochet model. And then your calves and stuff. But I don't know. We've probably talked a little bit too much about anatomy here. Oh, thank you, Kyle. Facebook. I apologize. So yeah, I went through my set. Oh, you got it. Yes, I'm 3 of 3. Okay. Because yeah, I was just showing 2 of 3. I went through all the steps. And it just was not working. So, yeah, sorry about that. And again, if I missed anybody's comments, I apologize. Let me move my microphone down a little bit. And cool. Okay, up and running. So we were doing this, and we're just having fun. How much time we got left? I got about 30 minutes left. You know what? On my next live stream, you know what? I'll do my. One thing we were going to look at was on my YouTube channel. Let's go back up here. This Zbrush ornate lion helmet. We'll do this on my channel. I'm having too much fun. So it was essentially the making of this lion helmet here. Here's a time lapse of me doing it from Zbrush 4R7, so a long time ago. But we can go through some techniques on my next live stream on my channel, which will be the first Thursday of the month. We can go through that. Cool. Ricky, I see you. Facebook. Kyle, thank you so much for doing that. That's awesome. Okay, so let's have a little bit more fun for about 30 more minutes here. I guess we can just refine these arms a little bit here. So he's got kind of those bodybuilder style arms here. And also the hands too. Hands can be a little bit tricky. So what I'll do is I'll go through, not tricky, just something to take into consideration here. I'm going to go through and separate these hands out. We'll go ahead and split hidden, and we'll dynamesh these, and then I'll alt tap these arms, dynamesh those. And now I can just kind of work on them separately. And if I need to change the resolution, the hands I sometimes tend to be a little bit higher resolution than that. Again, I don't want to over crank the resolution, but I do want to make sure I have enough information there. You know what? Let's say 80. There we go. So on here, this wrist is going to be a little more boxy through here. And I want to mention again, I'm just taking someone else's model. This is Bertram's model. He is super helpful to me on my Discord channel, which they were already saying how I never go on the Discord channel. It's not true. I do go on the Discord channel, but like you guys are saying, just not often. You know, I got to pick and choose my battles some weeks. So I'll hop back on there soonish. Maybe this morning. After my morning meetings, I got some of those coming up. Those should be fun. You guys like pipelines and workflows? Because boy, do I ever get tired of that stuff. But it's fun. So we got our triceps here. On the triceps specifically, looking at this side here, I think it comes down a little bit. I'm trying to remember that exact shape that it makes. I think it's a little bit higher on the outside. It kind of makes this kind of shape here, and then this one, yeah, these lower heads tied down in here a little bit more. So we've got our chest, we've got our arms, and we're going to go ahead and thin these out this way. So the arms are kind of like a chain link, and you're always looking for those rhythms. So it's going to be like here, you got your arm like this, and then halfway down is you got your wrist and the humerus, and you've got your deltoid here. So just like a chain link, which goes like this way and then back in this way here. Can I make two boxes that overlap? Probably not. Study your perspective, everybody. Don't be like me. So you got a chain link here that goes this way, and then this way, and then this way. Wait, and then wait, this way, and then out towards us. Let's do a 3D arrow. There we go. Out towards us here. And then away from us like this. So this one is your deltoid, and then your biceps are going to go this way, and then the width of the biceps here. And then you're going to have your ridge muscles, and then again the medial epicondyle, and then the flexors. So you're going from high to low, and then for the wrist here, we can just dial in that kind of stuff. Same thing for the leg. So if we have our pelvis in here, we've got our pelvis towards us. Like so. Here's your crest here, and then the bottom of the crest where the abs end up going here. So, and your obliques are going to overlap those a little bit, and then tuck down in here. And then from here, you've got your femur, and it's going to go to your great trochanter. It's not just any trochanter, it is a great trochanter, and it's going to go in. It's going to kind of give you a knobby knees look. You're going to have your femur and then the tibia kind of match up here. So through here, you're going to have your sartorius, which is going to separate your hamstrings from your adductors. So here's your adductor muscles in here. And then you're going to have your rectus femoris through the middle here, and then your vastus lateralis away from the body, and then medialis towards the middle of the body. It's going to be curved on the inside, flat on the outside. And then let's see if we can move this up here. And then you're going to have, again, high to low. Your tibia is going to curve right in here. Here's the low, and then your ankle, and then your foot. So high to low, high to low. I'm sorry, this way. High to low, and then over here it's going to go high to low, because that fibula, it's going to push that down. And then this is just like a little wrench shape that your foot fits within, like so. What else? I think that's it. So in through here, again, we're just doing that chain link thing. That's what I was talking about. So we're going to go wider this way, thinner this way, and then wider this way. And that's just going to make that feel a little bit better. And then back here, let's kind of punch this up a little bit here. And again, we're looking for that big muscle belly to the flat tendon to the sharp bone there. And then here, and then here. And then we got this big sheet of surface anatomy, essentially. Hey, everybody. Sorry about the whole Facebook thing. Not sure why that, how I was able to not get that rolling. But yeah, if you're just joining us, we're having a little bit of fun with someone else's model from my Discord, Bertram. He helps me out, and I thought it'd be fun. Oh, so another thing we can do, just like my fan art we were talking about earlier, let's say for this side arm here, we want to go ahead and say, I'm going to separate this one out. We turn off X symmetry, split that off. And now let's say this side over here, we want to have like metal implants. What I'm going to do is I'm going to crank that resolution up just a little bit. Not inflate, although we can deflate a little bit here. So we can start going through here, maybe take our Damien standard brush and be like, okay, we don't necessarily want muscles on here, but maybe we want to put some pipes, or if we want to do like organic armor, we could go through here and start dialing in, like put in some plates here with our Damien standard brush. And again, if you're just doing like super functionality, you can go through here and just kind of mimic the muscles in here. And again, this is just kind of dialing in how these shapes work. And then through here, you can determine, you know what, let's do something like, I'm going to duplicate. Now we'll leave that alone. We'll go in here and we'll say, let's dig this out here. And then we'll go back in with our clay buildup brush, and we can start, or our clay tubes, I'm sorry. And we can start adding in like indications of where my cylinders might go. You know, if his elbow's going to be rolling here and then his wrist could maybe turn around here, this could be just a cylinder that goes around his arm like this. So this would be more of that organic style sculpting. You can go through here and put a little bar through here just to kind of block out where we might want to see those armor plates. However, if you want to go just like straight up mechanical arm, this is where I'm going to go into my custom, not my custom brush. You can go into boy, my brain's starting to go already, and it can't go because I got a lot of meetings today. BI brush insert, hit the B key, hit the I key. There's your insert primitives over here. I have my insert base primitives here. This is my Z startup folder. You can always make your own custom folder here. So we'll go ahead and say split mask points. It's under your subtool split menu. And now we can just start dialing in where we might want to add some kind of base functionality in here. So through here, we'll go ahead and say we'll put in another cylinder through here. And again, this is just for my landmarks, so I know that these things are going to kind of semi-match up where they need to. And then once I'm happy with this, I can go, I think I can just say, you know, we can even turn on transparent here and then tap these. So now we can start just dialing in base functionality for here. So I'm going to go back into my cylinders here, and we'll just pop in some cylinders. I'm keeping my cylinders low because at this point I might tend to start using just Z modeler. So we can put in this one here. We can control drag this one off. We can put in one here that goes to the body here. And if you want to see kind of where I'm headed with this, a good resource would be, ow, hit my elbow on the table. Go to my profile here. And then, for example, this type of built-in kind of gross, let me see a good example in here. And I'll go ahead and pull him out. So here's this base model here where he's got the attachment points in his body, a little Frankenstein style. And then that gun arm is going to attach right up in here. And also thinking about the functionality of how these things strap onto and support his body, perhaps because he's got a heavy gun arm. So this is the basic sculpting process here. And then going through and refining this gun arm. So you can see here, just kind of dialing in what I want my shapes to be, and then going through and adding the final shapes and the functionality of these types of pieces here. If we want to see that, I wonder what the best, we can go to Sketchfab, or I can just bring it in here. Let's go grab him real quick. We can kind of see a little bit better. Not Commander Reference, we want Commander High Res. And I guess we don't need, we can grab the latest refine, I suppose. I want to grab a cheaper refine here. Yeah. So again, just putting in the cylinders of, you know, this, and another book, good book for this. I haven't read a lot of it yet, but I need to do a little bit more of a deeper dive. Oh, there's my surface. This Robot Evolution book right here has some really cool stuff in it. So take some notes in that. Let's turn off transparency. Let's hit F to frame. And then on here, on this gun side, let's go investigate this gun over here. And then, in order for you guys to see this a little bit better, I'm going to go into my materials here. On the modifiers, I'm going to take that intensity A and just lighten that up just a bit. So he's got some cloth over here. This is done in Marvelous Designer and then taken into ZBrush. And there we go. It was taken into ZBrush. And these wires here, if you haven't yet, check out on my playlist here. I was at the Zbrush Summit. And in fact, it might even be easier on my ArtStation page. This will kind of walk you through. So I did a ZBrush Summit 2018. I did a presentation for ZBrush at their summit. I have a 96 video series on just going through my ZBrush Summit slides. If you want to watch the presentation here, it's just me going through and giving my presentation at ZBrush and having fun with Louis. And then this is the cinematic, kind of what we made at certain affinity, just going through. So like the drone stuff here, you know, this everything that I did was made in ZBrush. All the character stuff, all the mechanical stuff, all done in ZBrush, and then thrown through Painter into Unreal Engine, and just putting this whole thing together. So, and the effects guys go in and make it look awesome. And then back here, a little Nintendo cartridge, all done in ZBrush, 100% ZBrush here. And then yeah, that kind of thing. So if you scroll down, you'll see a little bit more of the making of that process here. And these are just ZBrush weapons that we went through and did that. So you can check those videos out. But anyway, like this one up here, the controlling curves is the one I was getting at. So you can Google on my YouTube channel like how to control curves and stuff. But down through here, there's some controlling curve stuff that you can do to get very precise placement of your tubes if you're doing a lot of tube stuff or insert curve brush stuff. Let's go ahead and turn that off here. So anyway, we got the functionality of his body here. We can turn on dynamic subdivisions for that. So here he's got kind of a plastic shell, and this is from, you know what, let's look at that real quick. We have time? Yeah, we got time. So I'm going to go to my Commander reference, and in here we have our medical, a little bit of medical reference to kind of see just how things are grafted onto bones. And then also his mechanical arm here, it was this thing here, you know, this kind of, you know, kind of plate here and some straps across here just to kind of keep your arms held up to alleviate some of the pressure from the actual connection point. So in here, if we keep diving in, and again, I like to work with a lot of different subtools here, so bear with me. Keep diving in here. So this is where you know, the metal goes into his body here, and if we get rid of this one here, you're going to see there's that little connection point in there, and then underneath here he's got some staples and stuff. And the only reason I did this is just so I could, when I was in Painter, and we could load this guy up in Painter if you guys wanted to, go through here and texture all this stuff, and then kind of just do renders of him and his kind of beat up skin and stuff inside of there. So that was all that. Okay, let's see if I missed any factors. I made some clothing muscles. I tried to import it in ZBrush to have more detail, but it keeps breaking apart. Do I have any solution for this? Yeah, go into, so let's delete all here. So when you have, you bring it in, go into your geometry, modify topology, and go in here to Weld Points. So Marvel's Designer is going to get, when you put in a seam, it's going to keep it separate, even though those verts are going to be lined up on top of each other. So you go through and you weld, it'll weld those points together. Also, if you're so inclined, go to my ZBrush Marvelous Designer Quickstart right here, and that'll walk you through, you know, giving cloth thickness and projecting your details back and stuff like that. Do you hold your tablet right in front of you, or more to the right, like where you usually keep the mouse? It's off to the side, a little bit off to the right, and then over to the left I have my keyboard. I'm actually kind of spread out right now. I need to reevaluate my setup here. How you copy a whole block of a finger without making new subtool while in Dynamesh. So for that, I would use Array Mesh or Nanomesh. You could use either one. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have, yeah, we want to do robotic fingers, but like say we want to do like 10 robotic fingers in a row. So even if just for a block out, we're like, okay, let me grab this finger off, because again, you don't want to sculpt more than you have to. So we've got a finger here. We'll go ahead and split that off, and we'll Dynamesh this. And we'll just go ahead and start blocking this out. So I'm going to go in here to inflate and then smooth, clay buildup. Let's go into our auto masking here. Let's turn on back face masking. And we'll go to inflate here and go in our clay brush here. And so we can just start dialing in again, just indications of functionality here. And we'll switch this back to our square alpha here. Well, on this side, maybe we'll dig in a little bit. On this side, we'll pull out a little bit, and then we'll pull out a little bit, and then we'll pull out. And then we can say go in here with our Damien standard brush. We can cut in, or even our standard brush with our Z intensity cranked up. Make sure our lazy radius is off. Just tap L and go through here. We can kind of build this stuff up. And then we can have this like armor plate going through here. So I'll pull out where I want my armor plating to go. And then I'll go back in with my clay brush. It's kind of like you see people make those cookies, and they do an outline of the design, and then they go back in and fill it with icing. Same deal. ZBrush is a lot like making cookies, decorating cookies. And then you can go through here, and then on this side here, it doesn't have to be armor plated. Let's say you want these just to be just utilitarian Terminator style bones. So you can go through here and just kind of dig these things in. And even on the underside here, you can have a little bit of a differentiation between up here, which is going to be nice plated armor, and then underneath here mixed with, you know, greebles and stuff like this. We can go through here, we can punch these things in, and go back in with our clay brush and punch them out. So again, just getting our ideas out really more than anything, just to determine where we want our stuff to end up and go. We'll kind of flatten this out here with our clay brush, and then we'll just build it back up. Now again, this is just the concepting part. If you want to get fancy, you can go in here immediately and just start doing like, okay, let's drop a cylinder in here. This is where I want my cylinder to absolutely live here. And you can start replacing what you're doing in here with your real stuff here. Let's go ahead and move this out. And we'll go ahead and scale this out here, like so, and then we'll go ahead and just split that off. And now we can go through here and we can say, okay, let's bevel, edge loop complete. And we'll bevel this side too, and then we'll go through here and we'll say inset, polygroup island, region. We can pull this in here, and then we'll pull this in here, and then we'll say Q-mesh, polygroup all. We'll pull this in here, and then we'll do like a crease polygroup, maybe run a crease tolerance. We'll do a crease level of 3, smooth side of 4. So you can start dialing in what little fancy little shapes you want. But when you're just kind of getting the stuff blocked out, why do that? We can do that later. We can do that anytime. So keep it loose. Now, as far as the concepting part, and duplicating this thing around, you could also start breaking this thing up into different meshes. If you want to like pop this armor off, you can mask it and extract it, or just mask it, break it off into its own subtool. However you want to do that, I'll do both. And you know what, let's put like a little pinpoint right in there. Chow. And then through here, maybe just little indications of where we want to go. Again, nothing fancy. We're not making any real hard decisions yet. We're just kind of indicating functionality here. So question, how do we take this finger and then without just control dragging out a copy, because again, this is kind of destructive, and if I change this finger, I also want to change this finger. A couple different ways we can try and do that. For me, it would be going through here and doing, oh, this is also something I probably should have put on the form here. So another thing I like to do is go out of X symmetry. I'm going to kill this side here. We're just going to delete it. And instead of doing a mirror and welded copy, I'm going to do an array mesh copy. This is also good for like boots and stuff. You can have one copy over here, and then you can turn on array mesh. And you're going to want to, you can do transpose, lock position, lock size. So when you move this thing around, you want to make a copy. You can say, okay, hit Y to go back into transpose mode. And this one allows me to go through here, and I can set repeats. So I can say, you know what, let's go into W, let's move our repeats here, and then we can add in more repeats or less repeats just by dragging. And then I can even go into scale, and I can scale them down as I repeat them out. You can go to offsets and all that good stuff. Now, if we wanted to just mirror this one across the x-axis, you can turn on array mesh. We do have a repeat of 2. However, if you hit X mirror, it's going to mirror it on the local axis here. So just hit reset and then X mirror. And now when you're sculpting on this one, it'll update on that side over there. And now you can just, if you want to, you can have a hotkey assigned to array mesh turned on or off, or have it out here in your interface or in custom menu. So when you're working on things like things that are array mesh or work on the inside of a boot, you can turn array mesh off, and then I'll get rid of it, and they turn it back on, and then it's already updated. So that's how I would use array mesh across a mirrored axis. Now, however, if we again try to do array mesh, let's see, it's probably not going to work, but I'll pen a new stage here. So we've already mirrored, and we'll go ahead and have our transpose line here. So with this transpose on, it's going to be in the middle there. Where did it go? There it is. Okay, so that's where the world axis is. So if we want to drag out a copy, we can do that. And if we want to scale this copy, we can scale this in a little bit and then use our offsets to kind of fit this in there. So now as we're updating this finger here, it's going to automatically update those fingers and across an axis. So you can do that as well. And it's also going to scale it. So when let's scale this even more. Scale it even more obviously here. And now when I move this, it's going to lose that mirror. Ugh. So so you would probably want to move this down, scale it down, and then run a mirror reset. Probably is the direction you want to go. But what I'm going to try and do, let's try this. Let's just try this. I'm going to clone this off. And this will probably be the last thing I have time for. I'm going to go hit Y to go back into Gizmo mode. I'm going to go to Unify. It's going to throw it at our world center here, and I'm just going to straighten this little bad boy out here. So we've got a finger. Now I'm going to make this finger into a nanomesh. So with this finger sitting out here, I can go to this top part here, and I can go to Brush, Create Insert Mesh Brush, New, and then from this brush, I can go over here to Brush, and I can do Create Nanomesh Brush. So then I get down here, I get a new Nanomesh Brush. You want to know more about this? Go to the Pixelogic Classroom, or ZBrush 4R8, what's new, or ZBrush 2018, what's new, or any number of videos in here. You can just search right here. So anyway, we got this one. So we're going to make this a nanomesh brush. So we might be thinking, why maybe it's a nanomesh brush? You're going to like go through here and you can have like an eyeball. And probably this one will be a better example here. So we'll take the small one here. So with nanomesh, what that can do is we can go to brush. We can go to our nanomesh brush that we just made, and you can actually use your other nanomesh brush and just hit. So if you go back to our original Z modeler brush here, when you go to hit the M key, you can just throw in that nanomesh brush. But this nanomesh brush that we made is going to have that pointing the right direction. So as we pull this out, we hover this, we can say insert nanomesh on polygroup all, and then we can just insert those fingers however we'd like. And then under our nanomesh properties, we can go in here and we can say, you know, change it proportional or the fit or scale up the size or do our Z offsets or rotations, however we want to kind of make this work for us. And we have dancing fingers. That actually looks kind of cool. So with that brush, we can then maybe get a little tricky. And we can go, okay, I want placement. I don't want to have to deal with, it's not you're dealing with it. I don't want to have to try and use a ray mesh to do this functionality. You probably could, especially with a hand as simple as this one, but let's say you wanted to do something a little bit more controllable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that finger off, and then this one here, we've got our hand just kind of sitting here. So I'm going to go to, we need to make a plane. So really quickly, you can grab a simple brush here, you can go to the plane 3D, drag it onto your canvas, go into edit mode. You've got a polyframe here. You can go to initialize and make it all just one single plane, or you can just go here to make polymesh 3D, geometry, reconstruct subdivisions all the way down to a plane, then delete higher. B, create insert mesh new. Let's go back to our guy here. So with this plane, we're going to have these planes determine where our fingers go. So we'll put a plane right in here, and then we'll put another plane right in here. And let's say we wanted more fingers just to have fun with fingers. We're just going to pull this plane out over here so we can start just dialing in where we want our fingers to go. Like so. So now these planes, I'm going to hold down Control Shift, isolate them, split those off. Now with this one here, with my brush that we made, we can insert our finger on here. However, when you hover over this face here with the Z modeler brush, not that Z modeler brush, this Z modeler brush, hover over a face here. Is it going to let me? Oh, that's just our insert mesh brush. Did I grab the wrong one? Z modeler is the one we're looking for, not just the insert mesh brush. Insert nanomesh, polygroup all, the fingers on there, so we can drag that out. And now we're going to go over here to our nanomesh properties. And we're going to say, number one, let's go ahead and say fit. So that'll fit these. So and these are just instances. So as I make this cylinder or this cube bigger or smaller, so for example, if I grab this one here and I say scale it up, it's going to scale the finger up. So now I can have, not only can I make the size about what I'm looking for here, and also the rotations about what I'm looking for here, I can also have the ability to go through here and say, okay, I'm going to grab this one here, and I'm going to make it smaller. And then I'm going to grab this one here, and I'm going to make it bigger. Now let's change these offsets a little bit here. So this X offset, Y offset, Z offset is what I'm looking for here. So I'm going to put that Z offset so it's just kind of sitting right on those planes there. So on our original hand here, it's like, okay, we don't need any fingers anymore. Delete hidden, just dynamesh this together. Always like to do a little mirror and weld after that because close hose operation on Dynamesh isn't going to be mirrored operation. So we can go through here and we can scale these things and even rotate them. So we've got this little plane here. We can mask it, invert that mask, and we can kind of rotate our finger into place here. And again, these are just instances. So if we want to edit these, we can go into Edit Mesh here. You can hit F, go to solo mode here. So as we're working on this, we're like, you know what? I want to, let's go to BI Brush Insert Model Toolkit. So while we're just Dynameshing and stuff, you can go through here and you can see if you have any, let's put a handle down the end of this finger here. So I'm going to put a little handle in here. Dynamesh it all together. And I'll say, okay, I'm done editing my mesh. Come back out. And now all of these things are updated like so. So you can use array mesh if you can. If it gets more complicated than that, give nanomesh a shot. Cool. Awesome. Thanks for the kind words. It was animated and rigged in Maya. Yeah, our animation backbone is 100% Maya. As far as workflow from going to ZBrush to Painter, check out the Sci-Fi Pistol series and the Speed Modeling and Texturing and the Houdini Game Dev Toolset. This is just automated solutions for us to very quickly go from, for example, one of my previous live streams, we were doing the Medieval Zombie. We were just blocking out a really fun little book here. Just kind of doing a little crappy block out of like, hey, what would be, have a little book. And then we just went through Houdini and had it game res it for us and UV it for us. And then we threw that into Painter. And applied some materials. And Painter's another really fun one to read here. So we kind of went through and just applied some materials here. So then when we go to iRay and stuff, and go through here, let's change that. We'll have like a little textured book. And again, just the Cool Beans book. So you can very quickly just kind of go through, add some materials. And again, just a crappy sculpt. But from back here, that looks fairly representative, right? It looks like a tome, a Cool Beans tome. And then you get in here and you can see how crappy it is. But again, you have a lot of leeway for kind of going through there and evaluating your model with materials in context and stuff. If I have a very high detail model in ZBrush, have 10 subtools. I want to animate it in Maya. After I retopologize, decimate model in Maya, how can I apply a poly paint or texture from high poly in ZBrush to Maya low poly model? I wouldn't. I mean, if you can use any baking program to do that. That basically ZBrush, your poly paint is your vertex color. So when you export out your high res, and again, I go through all this in those videos I was just telling you about. When you export your high res, all of these pieces can be exported as an FBX. And I would suggest, if you haven't yet, just start using FBXs. They're much, much more robust and nicer than OBJs. So for FBX export over here, you can export it. It'll export all of these as separate. You can name them separate, like _high. You can go into Painter. You can bake them high to low, or any program, Marmoset or whatever you want to use. And then your vertex color, your poly paint, will just be baked out as either your material ID or just your vert color. Like Project says, when you re-Dynamesh, it will automatically close your holes. And that's also why I do a mirror and weld after I just do a Dynamesh, because the close holes operation isn't mirrored. So I just get in the habit of just doing a quick mirror and weld. Sculpt fur for animals, real fur, not fiber mesh. I guess I feel depressed too, because I don't know if I can do that. You can use insert mesh brushes. I would say nano mesh like we just did. If you wanted to have sculpted fur, use nano mesh, just have a bunch of fur shapes that you can just apply nano mesh and just kind of layer in fur techniques like that. Is there a way to make those fingers sit directly on those planes without the offset? Does that have to do with the initial insert mesh grab dock? You know, it might. You know, when I did that finger here, I wonder, because when I did, see how that floor plane's sitting right there, I wonder if I did this, if when I dragged it out, or I captured this as a brush. Let's do it. Let's see. Brush, create insert mesh, new. Let's do a little exploration real quick. Have to leave in 5 minutes. So what we're doing is brush, and get rid of some of those, and then we'll say create nanomesh brush. So now this nanomesh brush, if we go back to our hand here. Oh, looks like on that side it kind of got borked. So in that case, what you may need to do is under your nanomesh properties, maybe try alignment, align to normal. I might have to investigate that, the mirrored stuff not working. Or we can just try maybe a mirror and weld. Nope. Anyway, let's deal with this real quick. So I'm going to say, I'm going to turn, oh, you can also turn show placement off. So if you don't want to see those planes, just turn show placement off. I'll get rid of those planes. But let's go to nanomesh off, and then I'm going to hover over these. So with our new nanomesh brush, this one here, if we drag this off, let's see, offset. No, our offset still seems to be dictated. That Z offset's there. Still seems to be, I guess not. Yeah, and exactly, posing using Z-spheres. Paul Gabry YouTube channel goes over a lot of posing stuff. I have it in my, I don't know if I have him on my YouTube channel. I have him in my curriculum videos. But if you are going to pose using Z-spheres, I would say you'd have to Z-remesh this down to, Z-remesh it down to something reasonable, and then project your details back. So when you go to pose, Transpose Master, you can use Transpose Master and Z-spheres in conjunction together. You can save your Z-sphere rigs. You can even go into the Z-sphere rig and save out different layers to save different animation poses with your Z-sphere rig. Like I said before, Google Paul Gabry. Let's look it up real quick. His YouTube channel. I always point people to his YouTube channel for that specifically, for sure. Paul Gabry, not Did You Know That, his personal YouTube channel. Here, and then Z-sphere part 3, rigging multiple poses. Part 2, rigging with Transpose Master, rigging with a single subtool. These 3 videos right here, I'll link you guys to that. Watch those. Okay, yeah, so you're saying on the finger there, if I grab this one here and say, where's my pivot at? Oh, yeah, let's do this. All right, one more thing, one more try. Brush, create insert mesh, new, create insert, create nanomesh brush from that. We'll go back to our planes here, and we will say, I'll tap these ones. Let's actually, you know what? Let's just get rid of that, and we'll just go grab this plane, 3D here. Oops. This latest one we just made. Polygrip ball. Damn. No, it still seems to be buried. Any tips for beginner users of ZBrush? Yeah, the Z Classroom is great. And I don't know if you've liked this stream, then maybe you might like going through my Intro to ZBrush Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. I also have coming up soon, go to my YouTube videos here, I'm going to have 54 new videos, all updated for ZBrush 2018. They're ready to drop now. See all these new ones here? I have to do the intro video. I'm going to be selling the curriculum online, so I need to just sit down and do it this weekend. I still wasn't able to, so. Cool. All right, everybody. Thanks for showing up. And I'll see you on my stream the first Thursday of every month, and then the first Tuesday of every month I stream on Pixelogic's channel. So see you guys then. Cool. All righty. Let me flip this off here.